All right, folks, what is the deal with audio cables that you find online? You see graphics like this, these interesting plots, blown apart diagrams telling you what's inside. What does it all mean? And ultimately, how trustworthy is it? Well, I'm Professor Fiore, and we are going to investigate. Okay, folks, what is the deal with these audio cables? I want to walk through some of the things that you're going to see online when you go and buy something like a mic cable, or maybe some kind of patch cable, little TRS cable, XLR cable, whatever it is. And I also want to talk about what you should be looking for. What is it that makes for a good mic cable, for example? All right, so let's just get right into it. These are the kinds of things that you would pull off online. These are actual bits of advertising that I've seen, right? And, you know, when I first started seeing these things a few years back, I was just scratching my head trying to say, what are these people trying to say here, right? So let's start off with this. Lots of times you see these little diagrams like before and after, right? Well, before what? After what? You know, with normal cable, with our cable. What is this? I mean, it kind of looks like it's supposed to be I don't know, like a time domain thing with a bunch of little sinusoidal things here all summed up together, right? Like maybe this would be a voltage on this axis and this would be time on this axis, before and after. It's big, it's small. Okay, I can see that. Same thing over here. It's big, it's small. Well, if this is supposed to be my signal, I don't want a tiny signal, right? I mean, I want a nice signal. I don't want it to squash my signal. All right, well, maybe it's, you know, they're trying to represent noise. Like this is the noise before and this is the noise after, right? This is the noise coming into the cable. This is the noise coming out of the cable. This is the competitor's noise. This is our noise. Well, okay, maybe, but I'm going to tell you this much. If this is really the difference that you're getting as far as noise versus, you know, the desired signal from their cable, you've got bigger problems than your mic cable. I mean, to get something that nasty, that big, I mean, where are you recording? In the middle of you know, a power station switching yard? I mean, this is like craziness, okay? And then we have these sort of little blow apart diagrams. Some of these might be useful. You know, I could see this. All right, there's a PVC jacket. You got a braided shield. Oh, an aluminum foil shield. That's nice, right? You got the cotton filler. You got a couple of conductors here. That sort of makes sense. You know, that by itself makes sense. If you have a TRS or XLR cable, you know, a shielded twisted pair, you would expect to have an outer shield, right? And then you would have the two conductors which are twisted together. That's to minimize the sort of out of phase noise you're going to get, right? Ultimately, this is going to go into a differential amplifier. And if the noise is induced equally into both lines, then it ideally is going to get canceled by the diff amp. But you can improve that characteristic, which is called the common mode rejection ratio, by twisting these cables together, okay? All right, you know, that's not evil. But let's continue. Okay. Well, guess what? Here comes another one of these crazy graphs that's, you know, not in any way labeled, right? Again, what is this axis? What is this axis? Again, it's just a bunch of these things, okay? Over here, it's before conversion, after conversion. Conversion? These are analog cables. There's no conversion. Unless by conversion you mean, you know, you converted by buying theirs. Well, all right. Looks like there's a wave, some kind of thing over here. Very artistically drawn wave. Before, and then there's nothing after. So you're telling me your cable's an open? Huh? What? All right. Let's get back to this, right? The little blown apart diagram of the cable. So this says braid shielding. And then you got your tinned copper core conductors over here. I really hope it doesn't look like this, right? I hope this is just purely artistic license. They gave this to a graphic artist and said, here, come up with something. First of all, the shielding should cover both conductors. This is showing two separate shields. Secondly, these conductors are not twisted together, right? You should have an outer shield and then two conductors twisted together, right? I mean, at least this drawing made some sense, okay? It's not telling you everything you need to know, like what's the gauge of these wires, but at least it makes sense visually. This, oh my, if this is really what the cable looks like, don't buy this. I don't think it really looks like this, right? Just bad art, but who knows what the heck it looks like. They do say it has 28 gauge copper cables, right? Conductors inside. 28 gauge? That's tiny, tiny. I would never consider buying a cable that had conductors that small. I just wouldn't do it for a mic cable or a patch cable in my studio. No way. It's just not going to last. Let's come over here and look at this. Oh, look at all these conductors. I mean, there's tons of conductors here. Okay, and it says aluminum foil. Well, that would actually be this, but in fact, it points to one of the insulators on one of the conductors. Huh? Okay, pure copper braid. No, that looks like a conductor. The braid would be back here. It's this thing. That's the shield. Okay? And by the way, doesn't it look like there's an awful lot of conductors here? Well, they're not the only ones to do this. Let's go look at some more. Check these guys out, right? Ooh, other noise producer. It's a noise. You can tell it's black and white, right? It must be a noise producer. Escape into pure sound. This is 100% unadulterated pure sound. Oh my, that is so impressive. Stunning clarity and detail. Stunning. You can tell it's stunning because you can see how this is like made with all little dots and things, and it's little straight lines. It's very like geodesic kind of shaped, right? But still big on this side, small on this side. Unlike this, it's just a smooth little line. Same thing, smooth little line. We don't want those smooth little lines. We want these very sharp, dotty kind of lines. Stunning clarity and detail. All right. You notice that this cable and this cable, the guts, so to speak, look an awful lot alike. As a matter of fact, they look an awful lot like this, just taken from a different angle. What the heck is this? Now, I gotta back up here for just a sec and tell you up front, these cables are advertised as balanced cables, like a TRS a TRS auxiliary cable or an XLR mic cable. There are two conductors, right? The in-phase and out-of-phase leads, and then the ground shield. That's it. There's 3 total current-carrying conductors, okay? The 2 that are twisted together, those are stranded cables, right? Stranded conductors. Stranded because they're going to be flexible. And then the outer shield, there's many ways you can make an outer shield, right? The ground shield. A very robust version is to use braided copper, so it's sort of like interlaced. Another way is to just use what's called a spiral wrap shield. That's very flexible. It doesn't cover quite as well as a braid. Another option is to use like a tin foil kind of, I don't want to say tin, but like a foil kind of, aluminum foil kind of thing you can imagine running the length of this. And usually a good cable that uses foil will also have what's called a drain wire on it. And that's what you're going to solder to, because the foil itself is not particularly strong. All right. The best thing, if you could get a combo, if you could get a shield that will give you 100% shield with a foil, and then maybe have a spiral wrap or a braid around that, right? That would give you a lot of strength. You'd have 100% coverage. You'd have the best possible common mode rejection out of there. All right. All right. But, the thing that really sticks in my eye here, it's almost like getting an arrow in your eye, is first of all, the number of conductors and the different types. So this, if you look at it, is pretty much the same as this. This is a bigger drawing, so I kind of like this. Oxygen-free copper wire. All right, so we got 4 of these, right? There's one here, one here, one here, and then there's one behind over here. Okay, and then there's 3 more conductors, right? There's one with the red, there's one over here with a blue, and you can't see the whole thing, but just the tip of this one. So just like these 3, right? The red, the blue, and this other one. And these are solid. Well, you don't want solid conductors in your mic cable. It's not going to be flexible at all. That's craziness. Oh, and by the way, these stranded conductors, there's no insulation around them, right? They go plastic shielding layer on these. What's around these? Unless these are enameled wires, which would be kind of goofy in this case, but unless these are enameled wires, they're all going to short out. So the inside of your cable doesn't look anything like this. If this is a TRS tip ring sleeve auxiliary cable, like a patch cable, it doesn't look anything like this. Nothing. It's crazy. This is like a crazy diagram. Okay? Like I said, I think they're just giving this to a graphic artist and saying, make a cable. And they don't know what the heck is going on. So you can't trust it, right? You can't trust that diagram. Here's another one. This is the new upgraded version. And by the way, these 2 pictures are from the same unit, the same cable, right? 2 different pictures. What's interesting about this one? Okay, well, there's 3 conductors. 3. They're not apparently twisted. And they have what appears to be some kind of like filler, plastic filler around this. It doesn't show any sort of shield. Huh? No shield? You got 3 conductors, but there's no shield? What the heck is that? Okay. Over here, well, we just have a happy young woman, apparently. She looks like she's having a great time with her music or whatever. I do, however, want to focus in on these 2 graphs. Okay, now the other graphs that we've seen are just very vague sort of things like this, right? The stunning clarity and detail and these sorts of things, before and after, right? Before and after conversion. I love that one, conversion. Or these, right? Just the big overlapping sort of damped sinusoids. What the heck is that? So I've got like a blown up version of these 2. All right, so here's the first one. Hi-fi tone quality, other common tone quality, right? The black, the sort of gray black down here, that's the other common tone quality. It's common, right? But this is hi-fi tone quality in blue. Well, what do we have? It looks like a frequency response axis, right? It says hertz over here, 20 to 20K. Couple of things. First of all, if this is supposed to be the frequency response of the cable, this thing is all over the map. I mean, this should be a flat line, right? You don't want a cable to cut or boost particular frequencies. But interestingly, over here, it says dBSPL. This is supposed to be an output level. That doesn't really work on a cable, okay? I mean, that's like a measurement coming out of a loudspeaker, all right? So that's kind of goofy. And the other thing is, if you look at the levels on these, theirs is much higher, right? The blue version, I mean, this is showing like peaks up here around 90 dBSPL, excuse me. And the gray is peaking up around 60. So you're talking about a 30 dB differential? Well, there's no way that's going to happen. A 20 dB differential is a factor of 100 in power. No, I don't think if you replace, this cable with their fancy cable, quote unquote, I'll use fancy in quotes, you're going to see a 30 decibel increase in your output signal. That's insane. It's just not going to be true. And again, I still have these questions about, where all these ripples are coming from. But this pales to insignificance compared to the one below it. What the heck is this thing? All right, we got frequency across on the horizontal, right, 20 to 20K. And here we got dBSPL again. But now we've got these waves, these like overlapping wave thingies that kind of look like sine waves. In other words, kind of like the crazy ones we saw way at the beginning. But that makes absolutely no sense. as far as some kind of either frequency response or output level, right? This is just nuts. And then for some strange reason, they do the other, right? It's nice that it's not in English, but they do the other guys, right? The competitors, brand X, below 1 kilohertz, and they do theirs above 1 kilohertz. So it's not even like a appropriate comparison. And then they go one step further, 16-bit 48 kilohertz versus 24-bit 96 kilohertz. Hey, newsflash, this is an analog interconnect cable. This is not like a digital system. There is no conversion as far as analog to digital with this thing. It's just a cable. That's all it is, an analog cable. So this is just complete BS. It has no meaning whatsoever. All right? Okay, so crazy, also crazy, but stunning clarity and detail. Right? Others, before and after conversion, way too many conductors. Where the heck is the shield over here, where it should be? Why aren't those two conductors twisted? Okay? All right, and that's where we started. So then the question obviously is going to be, well, what should I look for? What should I look for in a cable? Right? Because what is with these audio cables? I don't know what's going on with these audio cables. Well, I'm going to give you my 2 cents here. Once you have a cable that's good enough, as far as audio is concerned, the really important thing is reliability. You don't want a cable that starts crackling on you or that dies, halfway through a recording session, right? You want high reliability. What do you use, Professor Fiore? Well, I use a bunch of different things. This to me is a workhorse. Now, way back in the 70s, the 1970s, when I started buying microphones and stuff like this, if you bought a Shure microphone, like an SM57, SM58, which I did, bought a bunch of them back in the day, they would come with a cable. And this is exactly the cable you would get. Heavy-duty cable. I still use them. They're still hooked up in my studio. I used these years ago when I was just out of college. A friend of mine and I had a sound reinforcement business. Wasn't huge, right? We had maybe a 75-mile or so radius that we would work within. But, these cables I'd bring out to gigs and stuff, they were great. You could walk on them. You could run, not suggesting you do, but they're robust enough that, you can kind of mistreat them and they're going to work really well. Okay, like I said, these cables that I have were purchased nearly 50 years ago, and I still use them. They still work perfectly well, right? Well, what should you be looking for? Or maybe you shouldn't even, you know what I mean? I will admit, there are sometimes I go out and I buy some cables, especially patch cables that I'm going to put inside a rack, and I don't worry about them. They don't have to meet my sort of microphone cable that's going to sit on the floor standards, right, that people might step on. If it's squirreled away in a rack, it's not so bad. There are certain things I will look for, which I'll get to in just a sec. But the reason why I won't necessarily make those is because you can get nice packages, sets of short, maybe 3 foot, 6 foot patch cables that come in different colors, rainbow colors. So, there's a green one, there's a yellow one, a blue one, a red one, an orange one, and so on and so forth. And those are really nice. If you're patching in a bunch of stuff, it's nice, when you go and try to trace something, you say, well, here's the orange cable. It goes from this effect to this input, whatever. I kind of do the same thing with my own microphone cables. I get some colored electrician's tape, vinyl tape, and I just put them on the ends like this, yellow, green, blue, whatever. So it's just a little bit easier to trace things, right? But ultimately, here's my suggestion. Learn how to solder. Make your own cables. You'll know exactly what's in them and how they work, okay? You don't worry about these really, really expensive cables that people are trying to push on you. You don't need to spend $100 for, a 6 meter, 20-foot mic cable. That's just not needed. Stay away from the cheap stuff. If you see something with a molded jack or plug on it, just run away. Don't even touch that stuff. Guarantee it's going to die before, before you would like it to, and probably in the middle of something important. All right. So here's my recommendation. You're going to build your own, right? After you learn how to solder, you got to get a good solder station. Watch some videos, get somebody to show you how to solder. Soldering on cables like this is a little bit different from soldering on a PC board, if you're familiar with that, because there's more mass, there's more metal, so it takes a little bit more heat. The touch is a little bit different when you do it, but you just practice and you'll get there. All right. I would go out, this is what I do, and buy some bulk cable. Now, for mic cable, I like Belden 8412. There are other good cables out there. And I'm not being paid by Belden or anybody. It's just that, it's available. I've gotten it. I've used it. I've been happy with it. So 8412 is a nice cable for something like a mic, any kind of differential cable, a 2-conductor twisted pair cable. If you're doing like an instrument cable with just a single conductor, their 9778 is a pretty nice cable. In both cases, they have 20 gauge conductors. So these are not flimsy little, 28 or 26 gauge conductors, which I guarantee you over time are going to fray out and break on you. All right. As a matter of fact, with the Belden, I think it's an 8410 maybe. I forget the exact number, but they do make a version with like an 18 gauge conductor, and I think they even make one with a 16. Those are going to be kind of thick though. The 8412 I like because it's got a good solid conductor. 20 gauge conductor is great. For standard kind of runs. You're going to run a 20-foot cable, 30-foot cable. It's great. And it's strong, but it's still flexible. All right. The 8412 has a braided copper shield, so it's very robust. It's a good, solid thing. The 9778 uses a spiral wrap, which doesn't have quite a good coverage, but it does have, to augment it, it has this conductive textile around it as well. So you still get really good coverage. And they both use EPDM, sort of a synthetic rubber jacket. So it's strong stuff. It's chemically resistant, good tensile strength, great stuff. All right. You got to start with a good cable. Then don't chintz out on the connectors, right? A lot of the cables that you see online and so forth, they have rather cheesy connectors on them. So you want to go spend the money, get a good, let's say a Switchcraft, A3M, A3F. That's what's sitting on here. These are your standards. They've been around for years. You can drive a truck over them. They still work. I love these things. New Trick also makes some nice connectors as well. On the 1/4 inch, if you're going to do a TRS, tip ring sleeve, Switchcraft makes a nice heavy duty all metal connector. This is like the old school connector that you would see. It's a number 297. You can get things that are a lot cheaper. I'm going to tell you, a lot cheaper. And if you're going to bulk about spending $5, $6, $7 for one connector, well, sorry. Buy the cheap stuff and live with it. That's all I can say. This stuff here, like I said, been using this specific cable for nearly 50 years. And it's worked. And it keeps on working. And that's really what you want. Reliability is really, really important. Forget about, all of these hi-fi claims that people throw out there. Yeah, it's great. It's nice. Sure. And if you have an unlimited budget, go wild. But for most people, save a couple of bucks. In the long run, put the bucks up front. You'll have less issues with things breaking apart at just the wrong moment, because it always seems to be that, right? There's never a good moment for something to fail. But that's my 2 cents on the cables, right? So when you see these weird kinds of things, they might reflect reality. They might not. Like I said, what is this? And these diagrams, just forget about them. They're meaningless. It's eye candy. It's just there to get your attention. Okay? Get something real, right? Get something real. That's what you want. Reliability. Reliability is everything. All right. I think I've said enough. Take care. See you next time.